second bill is House Bill 405. Importuning is basically using the internet to solicit for sexual conduct. And the purpose of House Bill 405 was to change what under current law are presumptive prison terms. A judge is supposed to send you to prison unless there's a good reason not to, basically. And the purpose of 405 was to change those presumptive terms to mandatory terms. And the reason for the sponsors seeking this change was based on that's this media's fault, a television media story by Channel 10 in Columbus, which looked at a 2-year window of prosecutions for importuning in central Ohio, the long and short of which was to report that a large percentage of these offenders did not go to prison, they got probation. Conclusion? Presumptive prison terms were not working. We are not protecting our children. We want mandatory prison terms. The bill could not have moved quicker. It had tons of law enforcement and prosecutor support. Moved out of committee in a flash, passed the House 95-0. I guess that's about as non-bipartisan as it gets. 95-0 with 54 co-sponsors. The problem, when you really look deep into Channel 10's media report, you learn that most of the offenders charged with importuning and who received probation had not been convicted of importuning. Instead, through negotiated guilty pleas, plea bargaining, the offenders pled guilty to some other offense, and an unknown number of them received probation from the sentencing judge for that offense. Question: how would changing the law to impose mandatory prison terms for importuning accomplish anything if the offenders were not convicted of importuning? There's a happy ending to this story. Neither of those bills passed. Neither was favorably reported by the Senate Judiciary Committee, which is why my report card for the 131st General Assembly actually is a solid B in terms of mandatory prison terms. I wish they'd not been introduced. I wish they'd not passed the House in a cakewalk. I wish we did not have to work so hard, sweat so hard, pray so hard to block these enactments. But at the end of the day, all you can do is hope for fair hearings by open-minded legislators of good faith. The real question is the 132nd General Assembly, because I expect both of those bills to be reintroduced, even though both of them have been rejected now by 2 General Assemblies. The sponsors and proponents got close enough to the end goal line to smell pay dirt, so they will be back. And after all, they can look and cheer for another bill that is receiving expedited hearings right now in the House and the Senate, even though it too has previously failed to be enacted by 2 prior General Assemblies. Senate Bill 20 and House Bill 30, they're very closely to being the same bill, would enact a new mandatory prison term for permanent injuries as a result of violent offenses. And the bill has a snazzy name, Destiny's Law, named for a sympathetic victim who was an infant who suffered neurological injuries as a result of shaken baby syndrome. The offender who caused those injuries only received a prison term of 8 years, and Destiny's Law will add a new mandatory prison term on top of that that will add an additional up to 8 years if those injuries are deemed permanent. I ask you, doesn't it seem strange that we have been sentencing offenders for causing permanent injuries to victims as a result of violent offenses for nearly 50 years under this Ohio Revised Code? And never until Destiny's case was there recognition of the need for an additional prison term for this particular problem. Will it matter to our legislators that under current law, not back at the time when Destiny's case was prosecuted, under current law, the same offense could be sentenced up to the same offender could be sentenced up to 16 years the same as what Destiny's Law would provide for. And the question is, if 16 years is enough for Destiny's offender and 16 years is available under current law, do we really need another mandatory prison term that would impose up to 16 years? We will find out, and it will likely depend on whether there's a fair hearing before open-minded legislators of good faith. I guess we'll be back next year to let you know how that turned out.